Hey y'all, my name is Miriam and it's time to paint. So grab your paintbrushes and let's get started. Now today I'm taking you guys with me as I paint with the Alla Prima process. Now that's just a really fancy way of saying wet into wet painting and typically all in one go, but it's a process that I love. Now Alla Prima is great for anyone if you're just starting out or if you're really advanced in your painting journey. I like it because it helps me to retain an air of freshness in my work that just is really hard to achieve otherwise. And also, it's just really fun. So, I'm going to share with you some of the materials, the process, basically everything from start to finish on how I do it. Now, I can't go on with this video without thanking all of my patrons first. I really appreciate you guys. This video wouldn't be possible. Now, I am going to post a version of this video with the reference photo. So if you want to follow along with me as I paint this, go ahead on over to Patreon. I'll post the reference photo there. All right, so step one, I am marking in the general placements of my background to get kind of like a silhouette of my reference, and marking in just some of the general placements like the hair, the eyes, the major shadow under the neck. When we look at the reference photo, I'm trying to match just like if I were to close one of my eyes, blur my vision, and squint and look, what would I see? Well, I would see something like this, okay? I'm not going for exactness at all. I'm just going for general placements. Now, one of the things I do want to point out, you might have noticed, is that I am using pigment sticks. They are RNF pigment sticks. This is not sponsored in any way. I just really love them. They are oil paint sticks or oil paints in a stick form. They can be mixed with oil paints. They can be used with a brush, just like you saw me doing there. And they dry and behave just like oil paints. Do not confuse them with oil pastels. They are different, but I really love these. They are great for keeping kind of a loose texture. They don't even allow me to think about detail this early, which you don't want to do. I'm not thinking about detail at all. All I'm trying to get right now is my general silhouette and mark in the placements. Now, at this point, I'm starting to switch over into a tactile mindset and thinking form first. Now, what I mean by that is I am thinking of this less like a drawing and more like a sculpture. So if you think about a sculptor, how do they start a sculptor? Yeah, how do they start a sculpture? They start with a hunk of clay. That's what this is right here, is a hunk of clay. And then I'm moving my paint around to try and find the edges, to try and find the form. Now, I am using all of my techniques from my how to measure video. I'll link that down below, but I'm thinking about the gravity of the shapes and thinking about all the different angles as I'm working into this. Now, am I concerned about muddy colors? Not at all. You can see there's a lot of mixing here. And all that does for me is, especially when you're working with a limited palette, is it creates a nice colorful ground for your colors to stand out as you build it out in space. Again, I'm thinking like a sculptor. I'm thinking tactile. When I'm putting my paintbrush on the canvas, I'm not thinking of the canvas as a flat surface. I'm thinking of it as a multi-dimensional space that has width and depth and height, and my painting as an object with weight. So as I'm going in and painting under the jaw, the forehead, I'm thinking about the weight and the feel of all of these objects. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but these are the things that are going through my mind. I work middle out versus dark to light, and I start with just general colors. Now, what you see here is just that, all of my general local colors, but I'm starting to think about how the color is shifting. Now, you'll often hear people say, don't mix on the canvas. I love mixing on the canvas. I do it all the time. In this area, I see blue, so I'm placing in some blue on the canvas. In this area, I see red, so I'm placing in red. This is how my brain likes to work and process the colors. I don't like to get bogged down in pre-mixing my colors and thinking too much about it. I want to keep this loose. I want to keep it fun. And this is just one way that I keep it fun for myself. All right, now that I feel fairly confident about the silhouette and the general placement of my overall subject, now I can start thinking about the features. Where am I going to put the eyes, the nose, the mouth? And again, this is general. This is all going to shift as I start to work on it. But that's what you see me do here, is just taking a dark shade and mark where that is. Now, so my general process is I put in the light and the dark, and then I will go into all of my transition spaces and put in red. As our form turns into shadow, so as we go from highlight into shadow, you'll often see warmth. And so if you look under the nose, and of course the lips are red, but and under the chin, anywhere where I know I'm going to be going from light to dark in a quick succession, I typically add in red. Or some warm color to help blend that out. It just helps give the impression of form, make it look 3D, and make it look like that object is starting to come to life. All right, so now comes the fun part for me. This is where I get into rendering and carving. And again, I'm using that term carving because I'm thinking of it sculpturally. I'm thinking of it as a three-dimensional object. When I'm going into an area, I'm not thinking, oh, I need to make this part lighter. I'm thinking I need to bring this further out in space. Or I'm not thinking, under the eyes, I'm not thinking I need to make this area darker. I'm thinking I need to push this back into space. I need to carve it out further. So even as I'm thinking about these things, I'm making sure to use terms that help reinforce a tactile sense, help reinforce that this is not flat, but rather a three-dimensional object. Now, how can you maintain the sense of looseness and freeness in your work while also increasing realism? Well, there's two ways that I like to do it. My favorite two ways. One is through compression of values, especially in your highlights, and rendering of your terminators. So this is something you might have seen me talk about in some of my other videos, but if you can render out your terminator, so that line where light becomes shadow, if you can figure out how to render those accurately, you can get away with a whole lot in your portraits. Now, everything after this part here is just me pushing and pulling. I have everything set where I want it to be. I have my features in place. I have the general sense of form. And really, what I love about this sort of process is that you can stop at any point. Like I could stop right here and call it a day if I want. Everything that you're going to see me do now is just a function of observation. I'm just staring at my reference photo and seeing how much can I notice. I'm staring at my reference as much, if not more, as I'm staring at my canvas. And that's really all I'm doing at this point. So I'm going to let this play out and you guys can see the process of me pushing and pulling. Now, I do also want to point out, this is, I think right here is a good example of a thing to remember. When you are moving objects out in space, when you're moving them closer to the viewer and they are in light, like the forehead, the nose, the cheekbones, right? Those are all light areas that are coming out in space. They're also getting more vibrant. They are increasing in chroma. So I'm not just adding white in those areas, I'm adding white plus pure color. So white plus cat orange or white plus yellow, or both, or white plus red. Whatever it needs in that area. But that's one of the ways that I'm able to kind of make it look more three-dimensional, if that makes sense. But yeah, I will let these play out. Another thing to remember, I'm sorry, I keep saying I'm going to let it play out, and then I keep thinking of more things. The shadows, typically your shadows are really packed with color. So you'll see me keep adding color into those shadows. And I'm also thinking about reflected light. So up in the brow bone, you'll see me adjusting into there. I'm just adding more color and making it more chromatic. If you guys have seen my videos before, you've heard me talk about the color multiplier. You know, I love reflected light. I always do this example. You see how colorful that gets? That's exactly what's happening under the eye bone. So I pack in a lot of fleshy, warm colors under there, as well as under the nose, under the bottom lip, and under the chin. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I will let this play out, and you guys can see. One of the things, this is the last thing, I promise. One of the things that I'm also careful not to do is overwork my loose areas that aren't points of focus. So that shoulder, that ear, the hair, those aren't my focus points. I'm going to let them be loose, and I'm going to reserve most of my detail for my focus points. I think it creates a visually interesting image, and I just personally like the look of it. So that's why you're going to see me leave a lot of it loose and just focus my smaller detail on the areas where I want the viewer's eye to go. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please consider becoming a patron or liking the video. It definitely helps. And I hope to see you guys around. Enjoy.